Here we go. Hello, 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 everyone. I want to talk about this whole deal with Don Lemon basically going up into a church and losing his ever loving mind. Um, I got a lot of stuff here um, at the ready. We got him going at it with Megan Kelly going at him and Nicki Minaj going back and forth. Don Lemon has been I don't know what's the word, but for someone who's supposed to be this quote unquote super smart person, Don Lemon. Okay, Don Lemon's been embarrassing as hell. Okay, I can't sugarcoat it. So we're gonna go ahead and get on into this right now.
Put this in your water if you have dementia or are afraid of getting it. Let me explain. Today I'm going to show you how to do the 30. So here is time for my sake. Grab your coffee cups, everybody. Get close to your phone or your TV or
Dang,
your
I should
computer or whatever it is you're watching. Or
should have
turn the
used my
volume up,
microphone for
okay?
this.
Because I'm
Oh well.
waiting. I'm just waiting to see Megan Kelly, Glenn Greenwald, Matt Walsh. Who else can? I don't know who else. There's a lot of right-wing trolls that you can, and people who don't have to rely on facts in this whole new streaming world that we're in. To have an honest conversation about what the FBI stats show as it relates to political violence and domestic terror in this country and who commits it, who commits it more often, without deflecting to black people, which is what you're doing.
Okay, my bad, y'all. This, I thought this here was 3 days ago. This here was 3 months ago. Hold on, let me find something more recent. Hold on, y'all. Here we go.
Now that he realizes that he might be in trouble with the Department of Justice for appearing to
And
trespass,
this is
meaning to
Megan
stay longer
Kelly.
than invited and refuse to leave once explicitly told to, among others. I mean, he could potentially be in danger under the SAFE Act, the thing that disallows physical obstruction of parishioners or others at a place of worship. He comes out with the following defense this morning, SOT 7.
I had no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests.
But Don, respectfully, you knew they were protesting. You made a choice to go inside of a church with protesters. There should be a shred of ethics within you to say that this is wrong. You know the difference between right and wrong, Don. You going inside of that church was a choice, and a piss poor one at that.
Protest started in the church. We did an act of journalism, which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. And that's it. It's called journalism. First Amendment, all that.
Don, you are smart enough to know where the line is. And again, you cross the line. You cross the line that you should never have crossed. Hello, choose compassion. How are you?
Stuff. For all of you people who believe in the First Amendment, absolutist, there you go. So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protest at the church before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea.
I'm doing okay. I'm just trying to figure out what's been up with Don Lemon lately.
Thank you for your attention to this event. It's Friday. I need to find out who
Oh,
killed my wife.
The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking.
This is a chance for you to clear your name, if you can.
Mercy, PG-13, in theaters Friday.
See what scholarships you may qualify for. Visit gcu.edu/myoffer.
I mean, he's on camera saying, we don't know what's happening. We kind of do.
yeah, I
We don't
kind
know
of
how it's
see
gonna
that.
play out, mentioning the church repeatedly before they even arrived. So I get the feeling, Matt, that Don Lemon might not be telling us the perfect truth there.
And I know some of y'all may not like Megyn Kelly. To be honest, I don't like Megyn Kelly neither. I think that Megyn Kelly is a racist demon from the pits of hell, but I digress.
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, so unlike Don Lemon to not tell the truth. I mean, it doesn't matter anyway. Yes, that we have him. I mean, he has himself, so he incriminated himself by recording all this, live streaming it, and we saw him out in the parking lot outside of the church before they went in. And so we know that he knew exactly what was happening. But even if he didn't, let's just say that he saw this band of leftists walking down the street and just decided to join them randomly, which no thinking person believes. Doesn't matter. Once you see them going into the church to disrupt church services and commit a federal crime, actually commit probably a whole host of crimes, federal and state crimes. But once you see them doing that, that's where, if you don't want to also commit the crime, you would just, take a left turn and go do something else with your time. He decided to follow them in and participate in that, and he justified it the entire time and made it very clear that this was not just like objective reporting. He wasn't critical of them. He wasn't even objective about it. He was very much in support of it. So this really, and now he's trying to backtrack because he's worried, and I hope he has something to worry about. I mean, this comes down to the Trump administration, who, it's one thing to do the investigations and all of that kind of.
And here's the thing I want to say too: the Trump administration, if they have a chance to try Don Lemon, the Trump administration will very much indeed making a sample out of Don Lemon. Not just because they can, but because they can and they want to. Pay attention.
Stuff, and I think they're saying the right things in the wake of this, and mentioning the fact this is probably a violation of the FACE Act and everything else. But now is the next part where you send a SWAT team in to Don Lemon's house and you drag him out before dawn, and you perp walk him in front of cameras, and then you throw him in prison, because guess what? That's exactly what the Biden administration did to peaceful pro-lifers, and now we do the exact same. It's time for these people to get a real dose of their own medicine for a change.
Yes, FACE Act, thank you. I said safe. That's not right, FACE. Here's more of Don Lemon inside the church, making clear, as you point out, whose side he's on. And again, trying to defend what these protesters were doing. And obviously, because he was a part of it. Here's SOT 9.
Sure, they probably call the local authorities right now, and they'll show up in a bit. But so far, no one has been hurt. People are just really...
And every single one of these people, in my opinion, should be charged at least with criminal trespass.
angry and upset. Members of the church are trying to get them to calm down. But this is the beginning of what's going to happen here. When you violate people's due process, when you pull people off the street and you start dragging them and hurting them and not abiding by the Constitution, when you start doing all of that, people get upset and angry. If you remember what the civil rights movement was about. The civil rights movement was about these very kinds of protests. For some reason, in our modern era, people think that in order to have protests, you got to be, cordoned off to a certain area, and what time you can protest. There's nothing in the Constitution that tells you what time you can protest. You can protest at any time. That's the whole point of it, is to disrupt. It's to make uncomfortable. And that's what they're doing.
Grab your docs, your permits, your moves. AI levels of your bitch, gets it in a groove. Draft design, deliver, make it sing. I builds the deck so you can build that thing. Do that, do that, do that with that cravat.
Here we go again. Everyone wants to know, so here it is.
Come on, come on.
Melania, rated PG, exclusively in theaters January 30th.
Okay, look, I'm sorry, but he's so dumb. I have to say it out loud. No, there's nothing in the Constitution specifically spelling out what the restrictions can be on first speech. They are limited in this country, but they absolutely can have limitations. By the way, Don, they're issued by statute that elaborates on the fundamental principles of the Constitution, on time, place, and manner. Time, place, and manner can be restricted, which is why the Westboro Baptist Church crazies can protest the funerals of our dead soldiers, but time, place, and manner can be regulated so that they cannot get right in the face of a grieving set of parents that just buried their boy. Okay? That's because the Supreme Court understands content restrictions get extreme scrutiny, but time, place, and manner regulations around speech, like you can't go into somebody's place of worship, are almost always upheld. But I'm sorry, Matt, he's too stupid or partisan to care.
Yeah, that's always the thing with Don Lemon is that he's I mean, legitimately a very dumb person, and so you always wonder, is he? That's always the thing. Like, is he lying right now? Does he know that what he's saying is as stupid as it is? I'm not really.
Well, damn, they ain't sugarcoating it. And the thing is, much as I can't stand these two, in this moment, Don Lemon doing this makes him look like a damn idiot. It does. Sorry, not sorry.
Right, it doesn't really matter anyway. And anytime you listen to this guy, or really any of these leftist protesters, they can kind of overwhelm you with bullshit. And so you don't even know where to begin in responding to it. And it creates a challenge in and of itself because everything they say is so wrong that you kind of get, it's like, where do I even start? Because, like, so for one thing, he says, well, this is, to justify the, quote, protest in the church, he says, well, this is what happens when you are kidnapping people, you're dragging out American citizens out of their homes. Well, two things with that. Number one, ICE is not doing that. Number two, you're in a church. These
That's
are
a
not
lie.
ICE agents. So even if they were doing that.
Matt Walsh just told a lie, talking about that people are not getting dragged out of their homes. That right there is a damn lie. They're getting dragged out of their homes and they're getting dragged out of their cars. Matt Walsh, you're a fucking liar.
Why are you taking it out on these just random people who are trying to, including children, as he admitted himself, who are trying to worship? So it doesn't make any sense. But I will say that if Don Lemon, so what Don Lemon is claiming that he believes that protests are, number one, about being disruptive, about making people uncomfortable, and that if you want to protest, according to him, the Constitution says you can protest anytime, any place. And there's no restrictions on it whatsoever. That's what Don Lemon believes. So that's apparently what he, that's what he supports. So I mean, I get, and I'm not, like, I just want to make clear, I'm not encouraging this at all. I'm not saying that anyone should do it, but I can only assume that if a mob of people showed up at Don Lemon's house and protested in his living room, I can only assume that Don Lemon would say, wow, well, they're making me uncomfortable, they're being disruptive, and hey, I mean, the Constitution says you can protest anywhere, any place, anytime.
And in case people don't know it or not, even though Matt Walsh trying to say, well, I'm not trying to put a dog whistle out there, Matt Walsh is totally putting a dog whistle out here.
So I assume Don Lemon would say that and welcome it. I mean, I can only assume that. So, or
Yeah.
maybe in that case, that's the one place where
Matt. Of course, the irony is that Don Lemon has sued multiple people. He's like one of these guys who loves to sue people and get paid. Before he realized that he could get the ultimate settlement with CNN because they wanted to bounce a black gay man, as he continuously repeated right after the rumors hit that he was going to get fired. In any event, now he's got some money, right? He's suing Elon because Elon didn't want to continue paying for his show on X because he attacked Elon as soon as he got there and showed that he wasn't a real journalist. In any event, now he's got some money. So Don Lemon, I guarantee you, he lives in New York with his so-called husband, who I'm sure they live in some high-rise building with tons of security and doormen and tons of layers between them and the outside world. So no one's breaking into any place Don Lemon goes and harassing him. He's got lots of walls between him and any security threat, unlike this little boy that we're going to put on the screen, who's just sitting there trying to worship and because of Don Lemon and his friends, got traumatized to the point where you can see the anguish on his face. He's getting hugged by a family member. There's another woman next to him with her hand on his back. You can tell he's upset. This is 3 months after, about 3-4 months after the Minneapolis Catholic or Christian school was shot up, where little kids may still have some trauma, Matt, with a bunch of strangers walking into what's supposed to be a safe place for them and screaming in their faces.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that makes me so angry that I can't say. I have to be I can't say everything that comes immediately to my head when I see what these people are doing, and especially, I mean, you touched on it with, and this is a key point, with people like Don Lemon. It's like the leftists that go out there and they love to say, "This is what we got to make people uncomfortable, make them uncomfortable." Well, these are always the most comfortable people who live lives of absolute luxury. And so it's very easy for them to say, but what does it actually mean? I mean, it's one thing to say, well, we're going to make people uncomfortable. Well, what do you mean by that, Don? Uncomfortable in what way? Why should those people be uncomfortable with people like you storming into the church? Is it because they're going to be worried now that something violent's going to happen? Are they uncomfortable because they're worried that their safety is in jeopardy? Yes, that is the type of discomfort that Don Lemon and his fellow leftist domestic terrorist agitators are trying to create. They're trying to make these people not feel uncomfortable because they feel threatened. And that's always the unspoken thing. When the leftists start swarming random white people in Minneapolis who they claim are ICE agents just because they're white, or making them uncomfortable. Yeah, you are making them uncomfortable because you are making them think that you're going to do something violent against them. There's an implicit and sometimes explicit threat attached to that.
Mm-hmm.
A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to somebody from Birch Gold Group? You know, you've been thinking about it. They use an educated approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces pushing the dollar lower right now and gold higher.
Okay, now that's a commercial.
Take the next step in treating your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis with Entyvio, the only gut-focused.
This is so infuriating. Like, it's actually making my blood boil. I want everyone in jail. I want all of them arrested. I just think this is the line beyond which we cannot allow them to cross.
Keith Ellison is here with us now.
Crap.
This is what we're trying to coordinate.
I didn't mean to start
When I
that.
was saying, should we go to Whipple? Should we go to wherever?
Here we go.
This is so infuriating. Like, it's actually making my blood boil. I want everyone in jail. I want all of them arrested. I just think this is the line beyond which we cannot allow them to cross. I don't care if it takes the National Guard, if it takes all of Pam Bondi's DOJ, if it takes President Trump personally making a visit to this church. I don't care what has to be done, but this is the red line and they've crossed it.
Yes, of course, Megan. My thought during your excellent monologue was, Megan, how do you really feel? You know, will you please tell us how you really feel here? And of course, you use this word terrorism. That's not hyperbole. Terrorism has a definition. There are all sorts of violence. There's state violence. You know, there's war. There's just war. There's law enforcement. There are crimes of passion. There are all different kinds of violence. Terrorism has a specific definition. It's when you target civilians with violence to achieve political ends. That is exactly what happened here. When Don Lemon goes out and he he presents himself as if he's just a journalist covering this. Now it seems though he actually was working with the agitators. When he says that protest is about traumatizing people, that just isn't true. I'm sure he's not familiar with the Constitution or the meaning of most words, but protesting is for peaceably assembling to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's where the supposed right to protest comes from in the Constitution. When you traumatize kids at church to achieve a political end, that is a form of terrorism. And to your point, Megan, it violates federal law. Because there's this law, which is frankly preposterous, which says that Christians and people who want to, just generally people who want to defend innocent human life, are limited when they advocate outside of abortion clinics. The FACE Act was passed, and the only way they were able to ram it through is to say, look, we'll stop demonstrations at abortion clinics, but we'll also stop demonstrations at churches. So you've got the churches.
That's exactly right.
The church of the right is just church, and the church of the left is the abortion clinic. And I'm even thinking thinking of the
Exactly
line of
right.
Peter Kraft, a brilliant observation, which is that,
I'll be right
abortion
back
is
in
the
a second,
sacrament of the
y'all.
left.
Hold on.
It even uses the centerpiece of the Christian liturgy, the Holy Communion, when the priest says, "This is my body," he's quoting Christ, "This is my body, which will be given up for you." And the left takes it and inverts it to satanic purposes. It says, "This is my body," and they use it to sacrifice a little baby. So the FACE Act is supposed to protect both. It's only ever really used to protect the abortion clinics. Well, here, yes, obviously the federal government has to get involved. The one part I disagree with, though, in your monologue, Megan, is when you say these people are busting in. This is, for some people, the one time of the week when they feel closest to Christ, and they're praying and they're worshiping, and this gives them some comfort. And, the left, they don't know that. I think the left does know that. I think actually you see throughout history, they always target the churches. They target the churches in the French Revolution, in the Bolshevik Revolution, in the Spanish Civil War, in Mexico. They do it for a purpose. I'm reminded there was this clip going viral of a BBC presenter. She was interviewing a young man, said, "Who are your heroes?" He said, "Kendrick Lamar, and my biggest hero is Jesus." She audibly hisses. This is something out of the New Testament, like there's a demon there or something. This is really spooky stuff. And you see this nasty spirit animating leftist agitators throughout history.
It's me. The voice in your head that's always reminding you to do things. Listen, we're not waiting to do our taxes this year. Here, go to OLT.com.
This nasty spirit animating leftist agitators throughout history.
Yes, I honestly, I've never felt so aware of demonic forces around us. I truly haven't. Started with Charlie Kirk's assassination, Michael, and I have just felt like they're everywhere ever since. Something has been unleashed that feels truly unholy. We have never needed St. Michael more than right now. And to cross into somebody's place of worship, I do wonder, it'll be very interesting to see how the mainstream covers this today, because I guarantee if you had a bunch of white MAGA types invading a mosque, this would be everywhere. And I wonder, how would it be covered if you had a bunch of people invading a synagogue in today's day and age and getting in the face of Jewish worshipers? Will there be any understanding or empathy for Christians who are in there worshiping on a Sunday at a Baptist service? Here's how Don Lemon saw it moments before he joined the resistance organization to go into that church. This is him outside of the church at the initial meeting. Seems pretty clear he knew exactly what they were about to do in SOT 6.
This is kind of MAGA coded, right? So the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up. Or again, this is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out. I can't tell you what is going to happen, but you're going to watch it live unfold here on the Don Lemon Show. There are...
You should never went inside, Don.
Looks for this reason.
Here we are. We're back.
It may look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as I said, white allies here.
This is unbelievable. The flag and the white people make it, quote, MAGA coded. They had to have whites. He wants to excuse the presence of whites to his audience with his stupid DL Mike flag, Don Lemon Mike flag. Okay, Don, he's really missing his CNN days when he mattered. He has to excuse the presence of white people there because you see, they're going. He's about to do the big reveal. They're going into a Baptist church service, and so you see, you need some whites. Hello, lots of black people are Baptist too. You'd think you'd know that, but no. And you need the white allies there, you see, because you're going to go confront a bunch of white Baptists in Minneapolis. A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified.
Skip through that.
Trespass, including Don Lemon.
Of course, he makes a number of uncomfortable admissions right now, which he should get blowback for in the media, but also he's probably going to have blowback from prosecutors on. He's admitting that he's in on it. He's clearly one of the organizers of this. But even the worst admission, I think, is when he comes out and he says, yeah, and it's MAGA coded. I mean, they've got American flags or whatever. As if to say our political movement, the left-wing political movement, is anti-America. He says, yeah, there's some white people, like, I'm sorry about that, but we have to do it. It's MAGA coded. As if to say our political movement, the left-wing political movement, is anti-white people. It's anti-white, it's anti-Christian. Obviously, it is. And so, when you ask how will this be covered, by the establishment outlets, they'll try to downplay it entirely. If this were a mosque, this would be treated as the worst, most egregious form of terrorism ever in the history of the world.
Yes.
Because the left uniformly
Yes.
seems to worship Muslims, not because they agree with Islam, but because they all have a common enemy, which is the country and Christianity. If it were a synagogue, it would probably be 50-50, because some of the left is pro-Jews, a lot of the left is anti-Jews. You would have mixed coverage of it. The one thing the left is certainly in agreement on, though, is it's anti-Christian. And so they go in there. Don Lemon is obviously helping to organize this thing. He says, I have a little secret, but I'm not going to let you in on it right now. And then he gets up in the face of that pastor and just...
Let me, wait, hold that thought. I want to give you the exact quote. He's in the car beforehand, before the shot we showed. He says, quote, we don't know what's happening. We kind of do, but we don't know how it's going to play. Accidentally, before they arrived, he was obviously trying to hide where they were going on the way over during the live stream, but he knew full well what they were about to do. Keep going.
These are the secret plans that Don, is letting slip a little bit. The very fact that he has the secret, tells you he's complicit. And then he goes up in the face...
Not exactly a Navy SEAL, is he?
I would not send him into Venezuela, okay? That guy is not clandestine. But he goes up to that pastor and he starts mocking him. And this is what the leftist radicals have been doing to Christians, going back at least to the French Revolution. Frankly, this is what opponents of Christianity have been doing going back to ancient Rome, is they mock the Christians. And so he says, well, I thought you were a Christian. Why aren't you just talking to these people who obviously have no right to just interrupt a worship service? But he said, why don't you just talk to them? You can hear them shrieking and screaming in the background. Good on the pastor for saying, I don't think they want to talk. I don't think anyone's interested in talking here. And this obviously is not the time or place for that. And then Don Lemon, it actually cut out, but a little bit later in that clip, Don Lemon says, well, look, I'm a Christian. Look, I'm a Christian. And you have to ask yourself, in what meaningful way is this man a Christian? We don't need to get into his personal life, but even just his public behavior here, it doesn't.
I mean, his personal life is relevant to the following extent. He has no children. He's a gay man in a gay marriage with no children, and he has absolutely no empathy for the children sitting there. I mean, he really doesn't. He's like, too bad, trauma's all part of it, suck it up. As mothers comforting their young sons is apparently so long ago in his history, if it ever happened between Don and his own mom, that he's forgotten that children actually do have a right to feel safe, especially in a place of worship, and might feel unsafe with Mr. Kelly, a serial agitator who's running around actually hurting people, bursts into his church and screams in his face, in the face of his parents. Don doesn't seem to understand that at all.
By the way,
maybe
Megan,
if he actually had a child, he might.
And don't forget the specific context here. It's not just that kids have been accustomed since Columbine to recognize that in schools, in churches, in public places, they could be shot up, they could be targeted. But specifically, there was...
Which just happened. Michael, were you just going to say it just happened? Yes, in Minneapolis. Yes. Like it just happened.
Yes,
and the nerve.
Specifically
the nerve.
Christian kids.
Yes, exactly. And absolutely no sympathy or empathy for them whatsoever. The law, there is the trespass law. And by the way, you as a journalist can violate it. If you go into a private place without permission, or even a public place where permission is then withdrawn, meaning you're told to leave and you don't, you absolutely can be prosecuted for trespass. But there is also this FACE Act that you point out was originally meant to target abortion clinic protests, and the quid pro quo from the right was, well, you also have to include churches, which is really just a fig leaf until now, until you have Trump and Bondi in there who are actually saying, you know what, we're going to enforce it. And it says, this act prohibits the use of threat of force and physical obstruction that either injures, intimidates, or interferes, or threatens to, attempts to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person who is pursuing their exercising their First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. So physical obstruction is enough. That is attempting to interfere with or intimidate any person at church. Got it? So it boils down to, have you by threat of force or by physical obstruction attempted to intimidate or interfere with somebody at worship? The answer is yes.
It's on camera.
It's yes to all of them.
Obviously, I mean,
It's on camera.
They're basically bragging about it, and so this is why the question of how will this be covered, I think, has to lead us to the conclusion that it doesn't matter how it's covered. I don't care what the news networks say. I don't care what the New York Times writes or doesn't write about it. We are in the government right now, and the only way that you are going to discourage this is through a massive show of just force, a force that is very much in accordance with justice and with the law. But that's what's going to do it, okay? The law is a teacher, and so we need to round all these people up. Biden was able to round up every Midwestern granny who took a selfie in the Capitol Rotunda on January 6th.
Yes, including journalists.
Yes, exactly. And here, we need to round all of these people up who broke the law. That includes Don Lemon. We need to tell them no. In many ways, what's going on in Minneapolis right now is the consequence of the left encouraging people to violate the law and never holding them to account. So when that lady who ended up getting shot by the ICE officer because she ran her car into him, when she was shot, I felt sympathy for her because she didn't think there would be consequences to their actions. Look at Minneapolis after George Floyd. Look at the left rioting and disrespecting law enforcement and even attacking law enforcement for years now. Of course she didn't expect consequences. That's a pity. We cannot give up law and order because of that. We need to remind people there will be consequences. This will not be tolerated. You will not be permitted to obstruct law enforcement. You will not be permitted to target Christians. You will not be permitted to scandalize little kids. I mean, that issue, frankly, takes us all the way to the transgender fights that we've been having in recent years. You have to make clear that there is order. Well, you mentioned Charlie Kirk's assassination. After Charlie was assassinated, a lot of people, I think in some ways to cope and process our grief, we said, well, you know, you might have assassinated one of the great conservative leaders, but we'll only be stronger after this. And sometimes that's true. Unfortunately, usually it's not. The reason why people keep doing assassinations is because, by and large, assassinations work. That's a very hard truth. And frankly, Charlie's assassination did create a lot of turmoil and division on the right. That's what it was designed to do. That's what it did. The reason that the left goes into the churches is because they can intimidate Christians, and by and large, it actually does work. The reason why they obstruct law enforcement is they can stop law enforcement from carrying out the law. By and large, it does work. We have to prove to them that it does not work. This is not merely a matter of, appeasing our passions or even bringing about some retribution because these clips get our blood boiling. This is an existential matter for law and order in the United States. If we're going to allow roving leftist mobs to go in and traumatize, their word, not ours, traumatize little Christian kids while they pray to God, we might as well give up the constitutional order because it would be meaningless.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw...
Detective Raven, this is the Mercy Capital Court, powered by...
Okay, finally, no more Megyn Kelly.
...of your wife.
I didn't hurt her.
Ready? Dog, you ready?
Yes, you're coming.
This right here is Lovely T.
If you want the latest news in the streets, join us Central in for the tea. Breaking news with integrity, so tell your friends and your family. It's the Lovely Tea TV Show, bringing you good tea and good vibes. It's the Lovely Tea TV Show. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Hey Tea Sippers, I hope you guys are doing good today. So over the weekend, there was a lot of drama here in Minnesota. We had white supremacist Jake Lang here, but then we also had drama at one of our local churches, and this was viral all over Minnesota Facebook and TikTok and stuff like that. But now it's become national news. So if you guys don't know, on Friday, Don Lemon had basically took to social media and he announced that he was coming to Minnesota. So I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. We'll see when you get here, Pooh. And so he ends up coming to Minnesota, and he ends up going to this church called Cities Church, and it's in St. Paul. And basically he ends up hooking up with this anti-ICE group, and so they had discovered that one of the pastors at this church was an undercover ICE agent by night, and the man's name is Pastor David Easterwood. And so they found out that not only is he a member of ICE, but he's the acting director of the ICE agency in St. Paul, Minnesota. So these protesters were really upset when they found that out. Somehow they connected with Don Lemon and they decided to storm the church. So we're going to go ahead and watch some of these videos right now.
This is an operation that is a secret, that they invited folks out.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere, they don't expect us to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual.
So right now it's kind of mayhem. We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them. Did they explain to you why they're here? They did not. They said that they're...
And again, in my opinion, Don Lemon should have never went up inside. I'm still here. I'm just going to be off camera just for a little bit.
Someone here in Easterwood, someone who is a member of ICE and he's a pastor of the church.
Our church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left.
So this is what the First Amendment is about the freedom to protest.
There's varying array of views in this church on politics of immigration. Recognize the complexity of the issue.
This shows you just how divided America is. When you look at the protesters here, and then you look at the people there praying, and you know what was the interesting thing? If these two groups could just get together, they might figure out what to do.
I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on in the Twin Cities right now, but I don't think it's good to fight fire with fire. I think it's good to speak up. I think it's good to protest, but I think it's better to do it in a peaceful way.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch. A guy here hugging his kid. And, you know, I just imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. They think that you lost and just didn't accomplish anything, and you went into their house, the house of the Lord.
The reality is the house of the Lord is a place where love lives. It's not a place where you can have a pastor masquerading as the director for the field office of ICE in St. Paul.
So that was just one of the videos. I'm going to go ahead and play you guys a few more videos as well.
The director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul. So someone who claims to worship God, teaching people in this church about God, is out there overseeing ICE agents. Think about what we've experienced. The murder of Renee Good at the hands of ICE. A Venezuelan national shot by ICE. A 6-month-old baby who almost died as a result of ICE unleashing military-grade weapons on our community. How dare you claim to be a pastor of God and you are involved in evil in our community?
Well, Jesus would be understanding, and
we're about worship these folks.
And here's my question. Why is this black activist putting on the Captain Saberho cape for a white woman? Yeah, I said what I said. Why is a black activist putting on a cape for a white woman? Y'all do realize the whole Megan Good thing is Caucasian on Caucasian crime. So with that being said, why are we not minding our black business? But again, I digress.
We're about spreading the love of Jesus. But did you try to talk to them? As a church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday, and we were interrupted by this group of protesters. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left. unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
listen, we live in there's a constitution and a First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me though.
We're here to worship Jesus. That's why we're here. Okay, that's why we're here. That's what we're about.
Do you think Jesus would be understanding and
love these folks? We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
Did you try to talk to them as a
no
Christian?
one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked if you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to
Unless you're here to worship. Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, so you guys just saw that video of Don Lemon talking to the pastor. You guys just heard from the black woman who was leading that protest. So this went viral all over social media, and Nicki Minaj decided to respond to Don Lemon about this.
Lord.
And she went off. I'm going to go ahead and read to you guys what Nicki Minaj had to say. So Nicki Minaj says, Don cock-sucking Lemon is disgusting. How dare you? I want that thug in jail. He would never do that to any other religion. Lock him up. Then she proceeds to basically retweet one of her barbs, and she says the following. The barb does. Majesty Elite says, this is the same man that goes home every day to his white husband, yet parades himself as pro-black, questioning black people's authenticity and telling others to prove their blackness while feeling bold enough to speak on Nicki Minaj. This is an alcoholic who was fired from a 17-year career because of long documented patterns of misogyny, hostility, disturbing behavior, multiple women, workplace culture where he engaged in aggressive, abusive, and violent behavior, including incidents where his colleagues said they felt threatened, intimidated, or physically unsafe, and added that he joked at Bill Cosby's victim and asked her why she didn't use teeth. Then the person continues by saying this, and yes, allegations of abuse towards women and men have followed him publicly for years, especially after a bartender said he was harassed by him in 2019. Major anti-Semitism awareness organizations publicly condemned him after he stated that black and brown Jews don't exist, erasing entire communities and histories in one sentence, something he was called out for immediately. Lock him up. Then Nicki Minaj retweets that person and she says true or false. So now after that went viral, the DOJ then went onto Twitter and said that they're going to put Don Lemon under investigation. So we're going to go ahead and watch this first clip about the DOJ and Don Lemon.
Former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been warned by the Justice Department over allegations he joined a swarm of anti-ICE protesters who burst into a Minnesota church in the middle of Sunday service and accused a pastor of working with ICE. Lemon, who has been documenting the increasingly violent protests following the shooting of Renee Nicole Good, live-streamed himself alongside demonstrators with the Racial Justice Network storming into the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, as they called out resident pastor David Eastwood, whom they accused of moonlighting as the acting field office director for ICE in the North Star State.
Before Harvard law professor Derek Bell was for affirmative action, he was against it.
Whom they accused of moonlighting as the acting field office director for ICE in the North Star State. David Eastwood is listed as an employee with the local field office. However, the Post could not independently confirm whether he was the same person who heads up city's church. Eastwood was not at the Sunday service. Some service disruptors chanted slogans heard at the dozens of other protests that have wreaked havoc around Minneapolis, while others specifically slandered Eastwood for supposedly misrepresenting the ideals of his faith through his support for ICE. Lemon spoke with the congregation's lead pastor, Jonathan Parnell, who said the bombardment was shameful.
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
The Department of Justice is probing the demonstration at the church for potential violation of civil rights laws, specifically for interfering with Christian worshipers, according to a post on X. Harmeet Dillon, the Justice Department's Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, chided Lemon on social media. A house of worship is not a public forum for your protests. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal criminal and civil laws, nor does the First Amendment protect your pseudo-journalism of disrupting a prayer service. You are on notice, she wrote. In a follow-up post, she noted that the FBI has been activated and accused the protesters of desecrating a house of worship. Lemon has dismissed calls for him to be prosecuted for joining in with the group and defended his actions as protected under the First Amendment. The MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true, Lemon said, claiming he had no affiliations with the organization, defending his actions as, quote, an act of journalism.
All right, so you guys just saw that video of what the DOJ is saying. So now the woman who led the protest, she's been identified as Nakima Armstrong. And I guess what you can call an interview, she kind of went off accusing newscasters of gaslighting. But the interview is very interesting, so we're going to go ahead and watch this interview with News Nation right now.
Start this Martin Luther King Day monitoring the tense situation in Minneapolis, where some 1,500 troops could soon be deployed amid ongoing unrest. This as several hotels across the Twin Cities, including some housing federal officers, are closing down due to bomb threats. Those threats coming following a weekend of escalating tensions between protesters, law enforcement, and agitators. Agitators who have descended on the city to capitalize on the unrest and create social media content. One far-right influencer holding an anti-immigration rally, leading to a chaotic confrontation on the streets of. We do start this Martin Luther King Day monitoring the tense situation in Minneapolis, where some 1,500 troops could soon be deployed amid ongoing unrest. This as several hotels across the Twin Cities, including some housing federal officers, are closing down due to bomb threats. Those threats coming following a weekend of escalating tensions between protesters, law enforcement, and agitators. Agitators who have descended on the city to capitalize on the unrest and create social media content. One far-right influencer holding an anti-immigration rally, leading to a chaotic confrontation on the streets of downtown Minneapolis and further destabilizing the situation. But one of the most shocking moments from the weekend coming yesterday when protesters entered a church where an ICE agent allegedly serves as a pastor and disrupted the service. The Department of Justice is now saying it is investigating that group for potentially violating the churchgoers' rights to exercise their freedom of religion. And now the Department of War saying it is readying 1,500 active duty troops to deploy to the area if President Trump decides to invoke the Insurrection Act, something the city's mayor is speaking out against on NBC's Meet the Press just yesterday.
In Minneapolis, crime is dramatically down. We don't need more federal agents to keep people safe. We are safe. Violent crime is down. Shootings are down. Carjackings are down in virtually every category, in virtually every neighborhood in the city. You know what's causing more chaos? Having these thousands of ICE agents and border control and apparently military even potentially on our streets.
News Nation has been on the ground since the very beginning of these protests. We continue to be there today. Mills Hayes, live in Minneapolis. Mills, we were just here live together about 12 hours ago. I just checked. It is -4 degrees where you are right now. What are you monitoring today?
Hi, Natasha. We're actually in St. Paul outside of the church where that protest happened yesterday. St. Paul police telling me that about 30 to 40 protesters interrupted the church service Sunday morning and that they did receive multiple 911 calls when this happened. People confused about exactly what was going on. Now, this protest happened early Sunday morning. The group going inside the church, interrupting the services and chanting things like justice for Renee Good, ICE out for good, hands up, don't shoot. And we could hear some of those protesters asking people if they supported ICE. And it appears that they were targeting the church because they believed that one of the pastors was a local ICE official.
Like ice.
No, sir.
I understand that what is happening is wrong, and I agree with that, but this can't happen. This can't. This is the house of the Lord. To do this is unjust.
Hot out, windows and it's hot out, I might just drop the rub. It ain't even a weekend, but I got a few friends and we tryna hit the road.
Attorney General Pam Bondi says she spoke with the pastor of that church, saying that she's prepared to use the full force of federal law on attacks against law enforcement and the intimidation of Christians. The congregation's lead pastor said interruptions were shameful and asked anyone who wasn't worshiping to leave. ICE posting on X that agitators are going from hotel to hotel, church to church, hunting for federal law enforcement who are risking their lives to protect officers. Meanwhile, I did speak with one of the organizers of the event. Take a listen.
Do you guys feel like perhaps maybe you went too far? I know that there was one guy that was...
Absolutely not. Listen. I'm not going to go down this line of questioning with you. This is gaslighting. Who has gone too far is Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, J.D. Vance, and the people who run ICE.
She tells me that they're not worried about the Department of Justice investigating them because they investigate everyone. That's what she said. And she also says that they feel like the media focusing on this is gaslighting the American people about what's happening here. Now, we also do know DHS sources confirming that an ICE supervisor is one of the pastors at this church here, Natasha.
All right, so you guys just watched that clip. So it looks like, regardless of the situation, they were correct. There is an ICE agent there at that, particular church who is a pastor. So Nekima was not lying about that, but a lot of people are not feeling the way they went about it, okay? So now Don Lemon has decided to respond back to Nicki Minaj and what she had to say to him earlier today. So we're going to go ahead and watch Don Lemon and what he has to say.
People have been asking me about responding to Nicki Minaj's unhinged, homophobic tweet about me. I usually don't respond to this stuff, but let me just say this. Nicki Minaj, stop talking about shit for which you know nothing about. This is you're out of your depth, by the way, and you are a homophobic bigot. You don't care about African Americans. You're not an African American. From what I know, you are reportedly an undocumented citizen, so you should be deported under Donald Trump's rules. And the other thing is that your family members, you have one family member who's reportedly a sex offender, the other family member, your husband or whatever, a sex offender is your husband, and one of them is reportedly a pedophile. And you have nerve to talk about me and what you think that I do?
Damn, Don, I didn't know he was going to come here like that. Damn.
Stop being a pick-me. You should have put a pick-me doll on that damn tweet instead of a Chucky doll, because you are nothing but a pick-me. And I choose not to pick you. And so should black people, and so should gay people. Should buy your music. Clock that. So people have been asking me about...
Well, damn. Okay, this new Don Lemon said, clock that. He's not playing. He's like, okay, I'm by myself. I have no CNN. I'm not worried about no sponsors. I'm replying back and I'm going in. So this whole drama with him and this group that he went into that church with, a lot of people have opinions about it on TikTok. So we're going to go ahead and watch some of those opinions as well.
When it comes to interrupting people's place of worship, can you think of any other religion they would dare do this to? Besides Christians. I'll wait for your response.
So y'all mad that Don Lemon went into a church where the preacher is an ICE agent, but not mad at the preacher for being an ICE agent. So y'all telling me Monday through Saturday he goes, he violates people's constitutional rights, busts a few people upside the head. That's very racist, because I'm assuming, if you're black or brown, he's like, hey, you don't belong here. And then on Sunday he grabs the Bible and preaches. And y'all mad at Don Lemon? Can y'all make it make sense?
I honestly think Don Lemon is more so trying to convince himself that he still aligns with Christ more than us, because the difference in rhetoric between him and that pastor was like night and day. When you watch that video, notice who the pastor was trying to bring the attention to versus Don Lemon. The pastor was trying to bring people's attention back to Jesus Christ and worshiping Jesus Christ. Don Lemon was trying to bring their attention to the protests. I'm not going to argue with anybody about the legality of what happened with Don Lemon and those protesters. It was illegal. It violated the free exercise clause. Lemon goes on his page and say, oh, well, I wasn't part of the protest. Are you sure? We definitely couldn't tell.
That man, that Mr. Lemon, thought that was a good idea to do that.
So it sounds like Don Lemon might be in a little bit of hot water with the Justice Department for what he did yesterday in Minnesota.
The freedom of the press extends to a lot of different areas.
Okay, I'm back.
To the extent of somebody just trespassing and being embedded with a group of rioters and being part of the group that storms inside of a church.
You see, Don is trying to hide under freedom of the press, but as you heard Deputy AG Todd Blanche say, it doesn't cover Don. So
No, it don't.
having a good old time dancing, these people that were trying to celebrate their religion, worship, whatever you want to call it, they didn't get that right because Don and a bunch of protesters decided to impede their First Amendment rights. So, there was a group of elderly ladies that were protesting an abortion clinic, and they received like 40 years in prison just for protesting.
You're not a journalist, you're a podcaster, dude. You got fired from... You're not a journalist, you're a podcaster, dude. You got fired from CNN years ago. I don't even know how many years it's been. I don't know if your little hubby writes you checks every 2 weeks and it makes you confused about where you're working, but you work for yourself, for your own little podcasting show, and you do interviews and stuff, and because people know your face, you get to go into some spaces. But the journalistic... laws or things, even though it doesn't really apply in this particular... It doesn't apply to you, period. Okay? Stop quoting I'm a journalist. I've got rights to go in and capture a story. You're a podcaster. Okay? So by your terms, we are all journalists. Everybody on this app is a journalist. And we can do exactly what you did and just walk up everywhere and decide to make them our today's storyline and topic.
Yeah.
Okay? I just need you to understand you work for nobody. Okay?
You're a podcaster.
Online degree from the University of Tennessee, you could be unstoppable. We're here to be your partner in that journey.
Trying to paint Don Lemon as a gay...
Even though he's a podcaster, if he's still registered, excuse me. If Don Lemon is still registered, with the Black Journalists Association and with the National Journalistic Association of America, he is still considered a journalist. Long as Don Lemon can still be registered as an independent journalist, he still has certain protections and certain ethics that he must use as a journalist. Now, whether or not if he's registered as an independent journalist, I don't know, but I'll let y'all know. Let's get back into this.
They're trying to paint Don Lemon as a gay man going into a church full of Christians trying to terrorize them in their hour of prayer, when in reality, he simply was outside trying to be, the independent journalist that he is, figuring out why there's protesters inside screaming ICE out. Eventually,
Dude, why are you lying? Don Lemon went inside.
He walked in there, he heard from a random bystander, he heard that someone possibly was a pastor and also a field office director for ICE. Me personally, when he first initially heard that, I saw the live, if you want to go watch the live stream, it was yesterday. It's on YouTube, go watch it. When I
I initially first heard that, I typed his name in, David Easterwood. He popped up, yes, on City Church's pastor leadership board and also as the field ICE director. So Don did not know that at that time. So he walked in the church to gather more information. He went to the lead pastor and asked him, did you hear anything about your pastor possibly working for ICE? He said, look, listen, this is an hour of worship. We are a church and we're trying to have an hour of worship. This is unacceptable. This is shameful. But Don was like, I'm a Christian and I absolutely understand, but don't you think it's a concern that this...
I want to pause this for a second. I know I'm probably gonna get put on blast for saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The Bible has never said that you can be gay and Christian. I said what I said. Again, I know I'm probably going to get put on blast, but the Bible has never said that you can be gay and Christian. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
It's a concern that this could possibly be true, and the guy's like, this is an hour of worship. We don't want to worry about this is the house of God. Da 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 da. So Don was like, okay, I respect that. Thank you. And the pastor was trying to push him away, and Don was like, respectfully, don't push me, right? I'm just trying to ask questions. I'm a Christian. I understand. John went on his own merry way, and then he went outside to talk to the king of City Church's website, and you'll see this man's face on there. That's it. This is public information. There is news. There's a fake right-wing news outlet on Twitter, and you have Nicki Minaj co-signing this weird shit, throwing homophobic slurs at Don Lemon like that has anything to do with his journalism. And then you have some weird journalistic outlet, Hindustan journalism, basically saying Don Lemon leading a protest in a church. That was not true.
Oh, Donnie boy, your booty cheek must be clenching real bad right now, knowing that the DOJ is coming after you. Listen, boy, you are not getting out of this one, because in this very video, you knew exactly where you were going and what you were doing. You stated you couldn't disclose the location until it aired.
I'm speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this, when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we were like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? So the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's an Operation Pull Up. And it's Sakima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off account. And so that's what we're doing here. And then after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, I can't tell you where they're going.
So now you know that the DOJ is coming after you, so you put out this video?
Fake news magazines are losing their mind. Something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear. Is this Assistant Attorney General? I don't know. Affiliation to that organization?
No.
I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. That's it.
What is it you do?
Software development.
It's Jewel.
Donnie boy, I would buy the shit you were selling had you not used one word, and that one key word is we. In the video, you collectively Your entire group knew exactly what the plan was, where you were going, and what you were doing. You yourself participated in something that was not okay. And now the DOJ is coming after you. Good luck, Clench.
Let me tell you something. Don Lemon and them went to the right church. You hear me? Let me tell you something. I personally am sick and tired of non-believers taking advantage of the kind.
Brennan Jamal, out of all people, has a reaction to this. Let's go.
Nature of Christians. Y'all can't even draw Muhammad on a picture nowhere, but y'all can disrespect the church whenever you feel like it. Personally, I feel like us spicy Christians, you know, those of us who are saved, but we have a lot of exercising to do. I believe it's time for us to have a lot of Peter-like energy when it comes to our Lord and Savior in these holy houses. Because I wish some protesters would have come into my church when I'm enjoying the service. Pastor wouldn't have been able to stop me. We would have been moving pews around now. Let me tell you something, Don.
No, y'all, because Don Lemon, ever since he's been off of CNN, that man is unhinged in a new level that I've never even seen, okay? He has his own his own show, and I love it so much. Same for Joy Reid. I love her show too. I'm so glad that a certain Trinidadian immigrant who coddles and is a very much Uncle Tom who supports that orange man in office alongside Erica Kirk. I'm glad that Don Lemon read her for.
Why the woman sound like she got cotton mouth?
Look at the history of you. You're going to sit up here and say that Don Lemon storming into a church and exposing.
Dang, you breathing hard. You was breathing hard, bro. You need to get you a breathing treatment.
Don Lemon was speaking to him that he was shook. He didn't know what to do.
Why is Nicki Minaj calling for Don Lemon to be arrested as if she's a U.S. citizen? As if she came into this country legally?
I thought Nicki would be taking a break to start the year because of how the year ended for her last year, but I was wrong. And this time she's coming for Don Lemon.
Oh, and speaking of Nicki might lose her house on Friday. Again, I'm just saying.
And saying that he needs to be put in jail. For those of you who are unaware, the reason that she thinks that Don Lemon needs to be placed in jail is because he was doing his job and covering a story as a journalist in Minnesota. Don Lemon was covering a protest that was happening outside of a church because the pastor of the church, I believe, is in support of what is going on in Minnesota. Now that seemed to piss Nicki Minaj off because she is on this whole Christian tour where she is celebrating Christianity and wanting people who in any way are disrupting Christianity to be persecuted, I guess. But my question is, and will continue to be, is whether or not you believe that people who are of the Christian faith should be supporting what is happening. And I know the answer to that question might be yes, given the fact that Nicki Minaj sat in front of Erica Kirk and praised everything that was happening with this current administration. A lot of this just feels like one big contradiction, if you ask me.
All right, so you guys saw some of those TikTok reactions. It's definitely split. Half the people think that Don Lemon is all the way wrong for that, even if he wasn't a part of the protest, him being there, and they want him arrested. Other people are like, you know what? You know, he's a journalist. He was using his journalistic, freedom, and Nicki Minaj is just doing the most. So it's very interesting how it's very, very split on social media. So like I said, it's been a lot of stuff going on in Minnesota, a lot of controversial things. Do I agree with somebody storming into a church? No, I think they should have waited outside of the church and then confronted who they needed to confront, because we've been dealing with so many things in Minnesota. Remember, a private school that was, hosted in a church, there was a shooting at the beginning of the school year.
Right.
So a lot of people who left the church said they were scared. They didn't know what was going on. And usually places of worship are supposed to be free zones. But I would also like to mention that, ICE should also
also not be going into places of worship either.
Exactly.
We've all seen videos online of ICE going into churches and
Yep.
arresting people. I think when they try and arrest people that are at church, they should wait until they come out of the church as well. If it's going to
And sorry to cut you off, Lovely T. Not only was ICE getting people in the church parking lot, they was getting people at the hospitals, they was getting people at the laundromats, they was getting people in the school drop-off line. So what the hell makes you think that ICE is better than these motherfuckers? I said what I said. I meant what the hell I said. ICE and the protesters ain't no damn better than one another. Let's get back into this. Come on.
going to be good for the goose, it should be good for the gander.
Damn right.
Protesters should be bursting into churches, but also neither should ICE agents. So, tea sippers, I leave the conversation up to you guys. Let's go ahead and get the discussion popping. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on all of this craziness that's going on in Minnesota that happened on Sunday with Don Lemon and Nikema. And how do you feel about what Nicki Minaj had to say? And how do you feel about Don Lemon's clapback? I look forward to reading y'all's comments. Please hit this video with a like. Feel free to share the video, and I'll talk to y'all later. Deuces.
If you want the latest news in the streets, join us and tune in for the sea.
And we're gonna go Don Lemon.
Salesforce is an incredibly important and strategic investment for Indeed.
It was sort of a light bulb.
Come on, Don.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Don Lemon Show. Welcome to this special edition. Let's get started.
I'll be right
Support
back.
comes from Z-Biotics. Now, let me be honest. After a night out with drinks, I don't bounce back the way that I used to. For a long time, I felt like I had to choose between having a good night or a good next day. That changed when I found Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol. Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic created by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink alcohol, it turns into this toxic byproduct right in your gut. It's that buildup. It's not dehydration. That's what makes you feel awful the next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks that down. Now, I take it before my first drink. I enjoy the night. I drink responsibly, and actually, I feel like myself the next day. So here's what you do if you want to feel your best, okay? Drink responsibly and then wake up tomorrow feeling great. Go to zbiotics.com/lemon and use the code LEMON for 15% off. That's zbiotics.com/lemon. Use the code LEMON for 15% off. Welcome to the program, everyone. Hello, Lemonheads. Thank you so much. Oh, wow, that was this morning. I had a little suit and tie on because I was hosting a Dr. King breakfast, which just was amazing. So, let me just say this. Is there anything going on in the news? Is there anything happening in the news today? I got to tell you, it's weird sometimes when these things happen. Usually every time there's something big that happens in my life, I am the person who is like least connected to it. I've been sort of in a protected bubble. Last night when this all started happening, I was like delayed in an airport and could not figure out how to get to get all the stuff that I needed, just trying to deal with like rearranging flights and all that. And then today I was in the middle of this Dr. King thing, which was great, to all of the support that I got and the encouragement saying, we got your back, don't worry about it. The number of attorneys who are like, this is a slam dunk, you better call us, we're going to mobilize. Civil rights attorneys, huge attorneys. So, we'll see what if I need any of that or any of that happens, but it just makes you feel good, especially the people who fought for our freedom, for civil rights, and who actually worked with Dr. King, reaching out and offering their support. So that means a lot to me, the world to me. Another person that means the world to me is my brother from another mother who is always there, and when I need to talk to someone someone who's been there, I call it old heads, is Mr. D.L. Hughley, my friend. DL called me just before the show and cheered me up. And DL, come on into the program.
Hey, boy.
On screen next to what?
Yeah, I've never been next to a black Klansman before. It's Don Lemon's gonna start a black Klansman too. It's crazy. It's crazy.
DL.
It's crazy.
So you saw what's happening, right? You probably know more about it than I do because I've been so busy all day. What do you think?
I do. I think this is an example of them perverting Dr. King's legacy and the history of civil rights and the history of race relations in this country to their own ends. It just for you know, I guess people, Black Lives Matter, found out that somebody associated with the church in St. Paul was the acting director of ICE, and Black Lives Matter staged the protest that you happen to cover. But what's more interesting is Black Lives Matter was protecting and fighting for the rights of Renee Good, a white woman, while All Lives Matter were paying money to her murderers. And so we find ourselves, and it is Dr. King's birthday, and we're honoring it. But we got to remember, Dr. King gave a speech. One of his famous speeches was a eulogy for the poor black girls. You can't use church, the angry Jew, using church for a speech, but black churches have been bombed. In 1996, there were 200 black churches that were burned. 12 years ago, Dylann Roof slaughtered 9 people at a church. So you can burn churches, you can shoot churches, you can bomb churches, but don't protest the church. It's the craziest thing.
Wait, talk more about that. But don't protest the churches. I mean, they weren't so mad when you protested and bombed the black churches. So what are you saying explicitly?
I think Jesus protested in his temple. He protested in the church. He didn't like the greed and corruption we saw. There are 2 times in the gospel Jesus protested twice. So if he can do it, you can too. Yeah. I think it's ironic that the very people who...
Yeah, let me just clear you real quick. I wasn't protesting. I was just reporting. I wasn't there.
Of course you weren't. Of course you weren't. I understand that. But you're going to have to explain that to Can you guys get my picture? I've never taken a picture with a Klansman before. That's so crazy.
Friday, I'm not guilty.
You have 90 minutes to prove your innocence, or you will be executed. The clock is ticking.
I need to find out who killed my wife.
The clock is ticking.
Let's walk the scene.
The clock is ticking.
There's got to be a reason.
The clock is ticking.
Go, 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 go!
The clock is ticking.
Officer down!
The clock is ticking.
Oh, I have something here.
This is a chance for you to clear your name, if you believe you can.
Mercy, rated PG-13. In theaters Friday.
What you want. But the more salient point is that the very people who are angry that protests erupted in church are the very people who tried to, this administration tried to get courts to allow them to arrest migrants in church. Mm-hmm. They wanted to arrest them in church. Mm-hmm. And the funny part is, exactly how he wanted us to treat the stranger. He wanted us to feed them. He wanted to clothe them. He wanted to protect them. He didn't say, hey, after all that, throw them in vans and drive them to Venezuela. He didn't say that.
Yes, you're right. And look, I want you to stand by because I want to bring someone in. And that is Mr. Attorney General. Are you there? The Attorney General of Minnesota, Mr. Keith Ellison, is here. Thank you, Attorney General, for joining me. Thank you for joining DL.
Hey, fellas. Wait a minute, I got a Klansman and an Attorney General. I've never been in this situation before. This is
first time for everything, brother. Attorney General, I know you know what's going on. I'm sure you've heard of what's going on. What do you think of this and what happened at the church and all that?
Well, let me tell you, I think that, the protest is fundamental to American society. This country started in a protest, and, it's freedom of expression. People have a right to lift up their voices and make their peace. And none of us are immune from the voice of the public. So quite honestly, I think that you got the First Amendment, freedom of religion, and the First Amendment, freedom of expression. And I think that, it's just something that you gotta live with in a society like this. So, this administration is real tender about things when it comes to their own interests, but they don't care about the same things when those things don't lie in their favor. So, they're getting tender about a church service now, but these people they're arresting people in clinics, schools, churches, anywhere they choose to do it, and so they don't really care about sacred and sensitive places unless it works in their favor. And they get real sensitive and real about police until those police are protecting democracy. Then they don't care about police suddenly. I mean, these people are highly selective, and I think that if you want to protest the behavior of a particular religious leader, then people are allowed to do that. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. Is this an attack on, to me, it feels like an attack on the First Amendment and trying to, and this is just my assessment, you don't have to agree with this, Mr. Attorney General, but trying to tie me as a journalist, to turn me into an activist, and I'm not. I was not there in activism at all. I was there just simply chronicling what they were doing, which is what journalists do all the time.
Well, let me just remind you, Don, they're over here throwing comedians. They're over here throwing comedians off the air for telling jokes. So Jimmy Kimball's is off the air because he's making jokes. They won't. The Mad King won't let you say jokes about him. So the First Amendment is completely optional in their eyes. And let me tell you, the First Amendment includes freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom to redress grievances. So that is absolutely under attack when FCC licenses are on the line based on whether or not you're congenial in the eyes of the president. So yeah, join the club. I know as journalists want to be objective, neutral, but the truth is, if you have an unjust ruler, objectivity is a threat to them. And so, sorry, but that's how it is, friend.
We're not going to get into all of this, but we will get into a little bit of it.
Are interfering with their tyrannical prerogatives, and that's how it is.
Can I ask you something, Dylan? You can jump in if you have a question, but I want to ask you about what I've heard is there's the FACE Act that they want to.
Ooh, I need to cut this light off. Hold on, y'all.
With me, but again, I'm not an activist. I'm not one of the protesters. And then what is it called? The KKK Act, right, DL? That they're saying. Oh, the Ku Klux Klan Act. Can you tell us about that? Are you familiar with that?
No, I can only say this.
I was asking the Attorney General if he's familiar.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the FACE Act. In Minnesota, we uphold the right of a woman to choose, and some of the activists, will, sort of so it's weird in both. It has the law has to do with whether or not people's freedom to protest, and generally regarding reproductive clinics and things like that. So that's the FACE Act. And then, you have, but how are they tying you into it? That is escaping me.
I don't know. There's someone in here saying, Don, you were chanting. I never chanted at all. Someone said, Don, you were chanting. Never chanted. That's not what I was doing at all.
Well, if you're chanting, Don, let me just tell you, what we're not chanting cannot be a crime. It's freedom of expression, right? I can tell you that, you may not have been chanting, or you may have been, I don't know, you say you weren't chanting, I believe you, but chanting can never be the basis of a criminal act, right? In America, you can chant.
What's hard for me to accept is when in Charlottesville they chanted, Jews will not replace us. That was protected. There were good people on both sides.
Okay, we're done. Last person I want to hear talk politics is D.L. Hughley. Megyn Kelly once again.
We don't get a choice.
It's interesting to me that he's lying about it. I think he's scared. He doesn't. I don't think he realized that he was breaking federal laws when he entered that church and disturbed people in their place of worship, intimidating them, and part of the crew that was physically obstructing them. I don't think he understood. And I think now he understands there actually is a real chance that he's going to be in serious legal trouble, especially if he gets charged under that Klan Act. Because now we're talking felony. At a minimum, he trespassed. However, trespass is not a federal crime. So what are the odds?
Now, here's the weirdest irony about all of this. They're about to try Don Lemon under a law that was written to lock up members of the Ku Klux Klan. Are y'all hearing me? They are about to try to lock up Don Lemon using a law that was designed to lock up members of the Ku Klux Klan. Are y'all hearing me? Let's keep going.
Of him getting charged for that by Minnesota officials. So it's got to be one of these federal crimes, which means it's likely serious, and we'll see whether or not they have him. It actually is fact specific. They're going to be looking at how much he did that sounded more like protester versus how much he did that sounded more like journalist. But he's lying about his behavior, which is a tell. He went on the crazy podcast of that very angry, weird-faced woman, Jennifer, what's her name?
Welch.
All she does is yell. Yeah, thank you. All she does is yell hateful things about Republicans. I guess that's her shtick. Here he is. Listen. He claims he didn't know that he and his cabal were going to a church. Listen for it. Sound one.
They said, well, there's this thing happening that they've been sending out flyers for. Perhaps you want to cover this. So I said, sure. And I went, okay, I'll cover. And then when I went to cover it, they said, we're doing this this protest that is sort of similar to the civil rights movement, where they show up places and they sort of disrupt the peace, like sitting in at lunch counters or, you know, drinking out of water fountains that were only supposed to be for white people. And I said, sure, I'll go, I'll chronicle it. And they ended up at a church. I didn't even know they were going to a church. And they ended up at a church. And so once they went and did their thing, other journalists started going in, and I went in. So I'm not exactly sure, Jen, how I became the face of it, unless they just think I'm the bigger name, but it's bizarre. And I reported on it. I interviewed everyone there, the pastor, some of the congregants, and the protesters. And that was it. And now all of a sudden it blew up into this big thing where I am the one who is leading the protest, and somehow I'm the agitator here when I'm just the journalist.
Okay, let me make a couple points before I play you the soundbite of him before he went in. He didn't. Oh, and I just documented it. No one wanted to talk to him. The pastor made clear, no one wants you here. No one wants to talk to you.
Get out.
Put your stupid mic away and get out. You know, he knew very well. He wasn't just there. I was innocently documenting. No, you were part of the harassment. You were pushing that mic into the faces of people who did not want you there, and you had no right to be there, and they had every right to eject you, and your harassment continued. But here, as for his claim that I had no idea we were going to a church, listen to him before the protest began on Sunday morning on site, SOT 2.
As Nakima said, this is a clandestine operation, and then we can tell you what's going to happen after. We don't know what's happening. We kind of do, but we don't know how it's going to play out. Okay,
We're not there yet.
We are here now. Do you think if you just had it? I think maybe if you just have it on the church, but if they see me,
On the what, Don?
they're going to know. No? It just depends. What? Don't name the location. I'm not blaming the location, but I mean, I'm just wondering if you see me.
I mean,
the folks inside see me.
Are the congregants really on live instead of in service right now?
No, but they'll be like, why is Don Lemon here?
Sunday morning church.
Yeah, okay, we'll see.
They'll be like, well, what else? It's Sunday. We already said the church.
No, we didn't.
Yes, you said it.
Okay. They didn't name the church, James, but they said repeatedly at the church, the congregants, as the service started, and this idiot let him get away with, I didn't even know we were going to a church. throughout that interview. So he's trying to rehabilitate himself by lying, which shows a consciousness of guilt.
Right. Almost every crime that is committed gets escalated when intent is involved. Intent, conspiracy, these things are very serious when a person has a plan in mind that is not what they try to make it appear when the event takes place. If a person says, I'm going to defend my household, and they stand outside, and they're looking for trouble, and, they make comments and wiseacre comments about shooting people in their houses and so on. You have to be very careful about those things because they sometimes can indicate intent and other times just frustration and so on. Look, this was an operation. I mean, it's operation. It sounds like he's in Delta Force. I mean, he's just such he's just such a buffoon. Okay. But the bottom line is, the last person you want to turn into a martyr is this ridiculous clown. Okay, he's just a ridiculous person, and you don't want to turn him into a martyr, but you do want to make it clear something Michael Knowles said yesterday on your podcast that was so right. You have to stand up and enforce the law, and you have to be tough about it. You don't like it? Too bad. You're going to go to jail. Look, our drug problem is killing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans. Okay? Our drug problem is our immigration problem. Our immigration problem is a Democrat strategy to stay alive as a political party. You know where they don't have a drug problem? Singapore. They catch you with drugs, they cut your head off, okay, or hang you, whatever they do over there.
That'll do it.
I mean,
that would do it. That would put an end to it right quick.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
Years ago, there's a movie that was
No. Stop. We're done. I don't know what the hell James Woods just said, but we're done. See y'all later. Peace.